What the fuck is wrong with that bear? Shoot it, man! Bear, speed up!
Get higher, baby, and don't ever come down.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel and I am here for another movie review with my co-host who specifically does not sell cocaine to children, Tanner Extra. And today we're here to not do cocaine, unfortunately, but talk about a movie about cocaine. Oh. Cocaine Bear. From visionary mastermind Elizabeth Banks comes a movie about a bear that did cocaine, and we're here to talk about it. But if you want to talk to us about Cocaine Bear, or actually don't talk to us about cocaine, we don't allow that in our Discord server. But if you want to not talk to us about cocaine, you can join our Discord.
You can talk about anything.
Link in the top description. And while you're down there, subscribe to our channel, like the video. It's YouTube. You know what to do. Tanner, Cocaine Bear has been a big part of internet meme culture over the last few months. That trailer set the world ablaze, and you have been quietly championing this film, saying it's going to do a lot better than people think it is. And now that you've seen it, how do you feel about its prospects, and what are your thoughts on the movie?
I'm still confident in Cocaine Bear's prospects, if only because we saw this in a theater with maybe 8 to 10 more people in there, and they were loving it, especially the guys behind us in the row behind us, because I think they might have been on a little cocaine, but another illicit substance, if you catch my meaning. Yes, I smelled it on them when I walked out the door. Anyway, I still think the prospects of this film are quite good. We'll have to see come this weekend how it's doing. But my thoughts on Cocaine Bear are that it's alright. Like, it's alright. I think that it is quite funny in moments, but at the same time, I think maybe in roughly equal amount of those jokes fall flat for me. And as you brought up when we were walking out of the theater, a lot of the character drama also falls flat, because obviously this film isn't designed to be a drama by any stretch of the imagination. It's designed to be a comedy, and I will say has distinctly more purely horror elements than I was really expecting.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that balance between comedy and horror, because I think that's what makes this film so interesting. But for me, I was pleasantly surprised by Cocaine Bear. It's one of those movies that's sold on a concept, and I really like when a group of people hear about a concept, they're like, that would be fun to make a movie out of. Happened with 80 for Brady. That surpassed my expectations, and I'm happy to say that Cocaine Bear did as well, because I found this film to be a lot funnier than I thought it was going to be. I found most of the performances to be a lot better than I thought they were going to be. I found most of the characters to be more entertaining than I thought they were going to be. And that meant that throughout most of the runtime, I was like, hold on, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. And one specific thing that I was very, very worried about from the trailer that I think did a lot better than I thought it was going to be was the CGI on the bear. Actually, pretty damn good. And it interacting with environments, I'm like, okay, maybe there's a little fuzz around the edges. Like, obviously, it's not in this location. But for a not huge budget film, a fully CGI character like this bear, it was pretty impressive CGI, I think, considered. So, fun moments, very gory kills, better comedy, some good actors, and a surprisingly good CGI bear means that I had a good time in Cocaine Bear. And I think this is a good movie.
Good. Okay, Chucker, let's talk about the comedy versus the horror, and let's get into let's dive into the horror, the kills first and foremost. I think because you said they were particularly gory, and I agree to an extent. I think there are some times in which that I'm like, why aren't we looking at this right now? But the one that really stuck out to me is when whatever the forestry wildlife supervisor guy is up in the tree. And you only really were his waist. He's hanging upside down, and his waist is above the screen, and you just see the blood coming down. And you don't see the bear tearing into him at all. I'm like, this is a rated R movie. Come on, Elizabeth. So let's pan that camera up a little bit. Let's show off some of this CGI or practical effect, whatever it would have been. But there are other times, of course, where I was sitting in the theater. I was like, oh, that was awesome. Yeah. I think particularly of when Margot Martindale flies out of the back of the ambulance while strapped down to a stretcher, and her face scrapes along the road. Yeah, like,
and mere moments after that, when that funny guy from like Twitter and TikTok videos, who's very funny in this movie, don't remember his name, sorry, has his hand like broken down and it's like pushed like that, his bones coming out. Like there's some surprisingly good gore in this movie, and I think it earns that rated R rating. Not only for that, but with a lot of cursing, which is frankly how I talk and do my humor. So I kind of like it when characters do that. But it builds this not taking itself seriously tone that I think works for the balance between horror, which is mostly just gore and not like. When you say horror elements, I mostly mean the gore and not like they're trying to like build tension in most of these sequences. It's usually like, yeah, there's a big bear and it's running at them and they're making crazy faces and then we're going to get a gory kill with some jokes sprinkled in. And I think that balance really works. But do you think it leans more horror or comedy? What's your thoughts on that?
It's probably like 80-20 comedy to horror, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
And as you mentioned, there are moments where it really leans into building the tension of, when the bear's on the roof of like the national park office and stuff like that, or when we're again in that national park office and we're taking Margot Martindale's heartbeat and she's trying to say bear, and the guys, he opens the door to the broom closet and it's like they're lurking in the shadows. And frankly, I think those moments are pretty effective for the kind of movie, for a movie that is a comedy film. They're pretty effective, like tension building moments. So hats off to Elizabeth Banks for being able to sort of swing the pendulum back and forth every so often.
Yeah, and I find those to be perfectly serviceable tension moments. I never felt like the movie was leaning heavily enough into horror where I would consider this a horror movie. I still think at the end of the day, obviously, especially because of how desensitized people have become to ridiculous violence like this, it is comedy that is served by what would traditionally be considered horror elements, like seeing someone's guts being teared open and eaten by bears, whatever. And it was even in those moments that I felt more like they were trying to lean towards laughs. Like I knew the punchline of that she was going to say bear into the heartbeat thing.
That was a great moment too.
Such a good moment.
Okay, I'll do it.
Bear. Yeah, that's actually really good. That's almost exactly what it was like. Okay. But I think in the comedy, this movie is sold on these sequences, and it's the larger narrative that I think kind of falls flat, and the character arcs that they try to have that aren't very good. But I like the characters' concepts, and the sequences that they're put into are pretty varied and distinct. You got the one with the ambulance, you got the one with the trees, you got the one with the waterfall, you got the one with the gazebo, and each of these sequences I think has enough funny moments with the bear, enough funny moments with these characters, mixing and matching the groups of characters, because there's a pretty wide cast of characters in this film, and I think it's also very well balanced in that regard. There are like 3 separate groups of characters, and they sort of ebb and flow in and out of each other's groups, and I like that it was varied in that way, and we could cut between multiple scenes happening at the same time, and never felt like we lost any of the characters for too long.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I think the structure of it is very good, and you talk about that editing a little bit, and that's also important for comedic timing and stuff like that, which I think this film has quite a bit up its sleeve. I think my favorite character pairings were O'Shea Jackson and Alden Ehrenreich, and then that teenager who we were saying looks like a combination of Sam Rockwell and Michael Cera. And then obviously they combine with, or they meet up with the cop, who I have seen in things, but I couldn't for the life of me tell you what his name is. He's a real guy for me, frankly.
Isaiah Whitlock Jr. He's in Goodfellas, Black Klansman, Five Bloods, Enchanted. Yeah. So yeah, we've seen him quite a few times.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought they were.
He was really funny. He was really funny.
They all had the strongest chemistry when he's like standing on top of the gazebo and he's got the gun pointed down at them and he's like walking around trying to figure out how to get down. And they're laying down. O'Shea Jackson's under the gazebo and they're yelling up and down at each other. Good stuff there, and I think, and even when we're walking through the woods with O'Shea Jackson and Alden Ehrenreich, and they're playing 20 questions, and the teenager's like trying to tell him how to play the game. He's like, no, you start broad and then you go narrow.
Yeah,
is it bigger than a bread box?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I thought the sort of storyline of the mom and the 2 kids was the weakest of the film.
Easily, yeah.
I think Carrie Russell is fine, frankly. The 2 kids are also fine.
fine, but I don't think that's enough because I think everyone else brought a good energy
a little
to the
bit
film.
more.
They felt like cartoony characters. Alden Ehrenreich is like ridiculously mopey in his sad moments. The detective guy is like ridiculously dumb in some moments, but he's trying to be intimidating. So many of these characters felt like cartoon versions of themselves, which I think worked for the tone this was going for. And so when you cut back to Kerry Russell and she's just a mom who's worried about her daughter, and she's not fun. I don't think she ever makes a joke. But luckily, she's paired with a really funny little boy who's making a lot of jokes and bringing a lot of energy to the situation. Because as you've seen from the trailer, he's inhaled a little bit of cocaine. There's this really funny sequence where her daughter and the kid, and they like eat it and like, oh, it tastes like nasty. Really funny stuff. But
I was surprised that they did have the kids. I was surprised that they did have the kids like consume cocaine. I was like, okay, all right, you know what? Props to them. We're going a bit. We're pushing the envelope a little bit here.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other storyline that ends about halfway through is the Margot Martindale, and which leads into the other teenagers in that cabin, which leads into the ambulance. And I gotta say that ambulance chase is my favorite scene of the whole film. Frankly, it's got a lot of great energy. It transitions out from that tension that I was talking about into we got an '80s tune cranked up on the car radio.
Lots of good music in this movie.
Yeah. The score is also very good, but the soundtrack and Margot Martindale's shooting out the back and they're all screaming at each other and the bear's picking up steam and it's gaining on them. Like, this is a very good scene. I think that's where it peaked for me.
Sure.
That's the peak of this film. And then after that, you have the scene that I was talking about earlier where our four characters are sort of confronting each other at the gazebo. And then it's a steady decline, I feel like, after that. We peak and then we decline too early, I would say. Especially when Ray Liotta arrives in the forest. And, rest in peace, Ray Liotta, fantastic actor, as I'm not the first one to say it, obviously. But he's also not really bringing it in this, I guess. And that's fine, he's earned he can rest on his laurels a little bit. But it is really sad that he sort of marks the steady decline of the comedy and stakes of this film.
That's true, but I think it's because of the role he plays in the film. He is technically the villain. Of course, the bear is doing the killing, but you almost root for the bear. You're like, oh, this bear is doing some really funny things, like being obsessed with cocaine to the point where you throw a sack of cocaine, it's gonna like start bounding after it like a dog, or sniffing in the air to like, get some cocaine on its tongue. But he is like the scary, darker side of the drug hustler, or trying to get the cocaine despite all odds, even at the cost of his son's life or the life of these two baby bears or the children that are in front of him. And he makes the film serious in a way that I think loses what the energy and tone of this film is when it works best. Is Kerry Russell is scared that this guy might hurt her kid, and so then that's supposed to be tension filled. You're supposed to feel worried for the mom and the kid, but you know nothing's gonna happen. And his conflict with his son and the whole drug business, and Alden Ehrenreich's son not really knowing, like there's too much serious stuff in that family in a way that brings down the tone of the film. And that's so much of that last 15 minutes that I absolutely agree. It peaks reasonably early and just peters off towards the end. And while there are some funny moments at the end when the bear wakes up from getting some cocaine after falling into the waterfall, like these are fleeting moments and just kind of losing steam by the end. But I think that it had that steam for so much of the film, the bulk of the runtime, that I still absolutely enjoyed the heck out of this movie. And I'm just not gonna remember that last few minutes. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess it ended with the waterfall sequence and the gun and whatever, but you remember the ambulance chase, you remember them climbing up the trees and all that. Like, that's what this movie is sold on, and that's where it works very, very, very well.
I would just say, wrapping up, that I think some of the best moments of this were given away in the trailer.
100%, yes.
But I will also give credit where credit is due, in that I thought it was going to be a lot more like leaning into humor, which I find to be a little bit insufferable. That is, isn't this zany and wacky and weird? And it does that, like when the boy calls the bear, he calls it Cocaine Bear, which I think is a little bit on the nose at points. because of the whole. I will say this is outside of the scope of the film itself, but like the marketing campaign, I think got a little too like, you get it? Isn't
Sure.
it weird
Yeah,
that it's
yeah.
a cocaine bear? Huh? We get it. It's a bear that does cocaine. We say that in the trailer. You don't have to remind me of it at the Super Bowl and everywhere I look online. Okay. Yeah. The Twitter ads don't have to say, "Hi, I'm the bear who did cocaine." They made a movie about me. I get it. Okay. Well, the movie doesn't do as much of that as I was expecting it to.
Yeah.
And therefore, Tucker, if I can get my score, I'd give this a 5.7 out of 10.
Sure. I'm going to give it a higher score. I'm going to go a 7.4 out of 10. I think this is a
Sure.
good movie and surprisingly good for as simple as it could have been. This could have been like super, super cash grabby and like all the jokes could have fallen flat and it could have been a really crappy CGI bear. But I think there was a good bar of quality in this. I liked the energy that like 90% of the actors were bringing. I thought that most of the jokes hit for me. And also another mark of that this film sort of feels more quality than I was expecting is a lot of this is shot in actual forest. And it could have been just like sound stages made up to look like a couple trees or whatever. But I think that they did a good job of making it feel like they were actually adventuring through a forest and being chased by a bear. And that gave it a sense of place that a lot of horror movies or cheaper movies feel like, oh, this is like a couple leaves thrown onto a soundstage and it could be anywhere. But it's all, or basically all in daytime. Actually, another big problem with this movie. When it hits nighttime, it's dark and you can't see anything and it's bad. But also, that's in that last 15 minutes and that's just another problem on top of that. But 7.4 out of 10. I think go see Cocaine Bear.
Go see Cocaine Bear. If only to prove me right that it's going to do well at the box office, please.
Yeah, of course. But also just to have a good time. I think this will become one of the iconic concept movies. Like, they made a movie about a bear that did cocaine, and actually it was kind of fun. And
it was
especially
fun.
watching with a group of friends and remembering the jokes afterward. That's what this movie is going for, and I think it absolutely nails that. So good on you, Elizabeth Banks.
And we'll get Cocaine Shark next, according to Elizabeth Banks.
I'm very excited for that. But if you are excited about Cocaine Bear, Cocaine Shark, join our Discord again. We will see you guys in another video. Meet cocaine. Insert Spider-Verse.
I pick up the little I pick up the little grains and I go.
Singular cocaine
savor
grains.
My cocaine. Yeah,
Jesus.
granular cocaines. I like to savor it.
What's the weight of a single grain of cocaine?
About 100 pounds.
Whoa! Wow, it's real heavy.
Yeah.
Can't believe that bear.
That's why drug addicts are always so fit.
Is that true?
Classically.
Okay. I trust you on that. You're much more.
Tucker, look at me. The picture of health. I do cocaine every day.